The massive spaceship hung in the darkness of space like a crystal mountain. Its sharp edges caught the light from Earth's sun, sending rainbow patterns across its surface. Inside this incredible ship, General Do-One stood at the main window of his command room, looking out at the blue planet below. Do-One was different from humans in many ways. He stood 12 feet tall, and his body was covered in crystal-like armor that grew naturally from his skin. This armor had protected him in 1,000 battles, and no weapon had ever managed to break it. His eyes glowed with a soft purple light, and when he walked, his crystal armor made gentle clicking sounds against the ship's floor. "General," a voice called from behind him. "The Earth reports are ready." Do-One turned to face Commander He-Jin, his most trusted helper. He-Jin was shorter than Do-One, only 9 feet tall, and his crystal armor had a bluish tint instead of Do-One's clear white. "Tell me what you found, Commander," Do-One said in his deep voice. He sat in his large command chair, which was made specially to hold his weight and size. He-Jin touched a screen on the wall, and pictures of Earth appeared. "The humans are strange, General. They are small and soft, with no natural armor. But they are clever. They have fought many wars among themselves, and always find new ways to survive." Do-One made a sound that might have been a laugh, but it was hard to tell because he rarely showed any feelings. 17 star systems have fallen to us, He-Jin. 17 worlds thought they were clever too. Now they all serve the crystalline empire. He-Jin moved uncomfortably. "Yes, General, but humans are different. They do unexpected things. They make choices that don't follow logic. Sometimes they help others even when it hurts them. Sometimes they fight even when they cannot win. That is because they are foolish," Do-One said. He stood up and walked to a wall covered in battle maps. Each map showed a world he had conquered. "Look at my victories, He-Jin. The rock people of System 9 had skin harder than steel. They fell. The gas giants of System 12 could turn invisible. They fell. The fire brothers of System 15 could melt ships with their weapons. They fell too." He-Jin nodded but still looked worried. "I understand, General. But please read the full report about humans. They have something that makes them special. They have strong feelings that drive them to do impossible things." Do-One turned sharply, his crystal armor catching the light. "Feelings. Feelings are weakness, He-Jin. I learned this long ago, when I was small. The strong survive. The weak fall. This is the only truth that matters." As he spoke, Do-One remembered his childhood, though he tried not to. He remembered being a small crystal child, different from the others, because he could feel things deeply. He remembered the teachers who told him feelings would make him weak. He remembered learning to lock his feelings away, deep inside, until he became the perfect warrior they wanted. "Prepare the first attack force," Do-One ordered. "We will take their largest cities first. When their leaders see my power, they will surrender, just like all the others." He-Jin bowed and left the room, but he was still worried. He had studied Earth's history carefully. He had watched their stories and songs, seen how they fought harder when protecting those they loved. He had seen how they would help complete strangers simply because they felt it was right. Do-One went back to the window. Soon, small ships started leaving the main crystal ship, heading down to Earth. They looked like falling stars in the night sky. Do-One watched them with pride. He had never lost a battle, never failed in a conquest. His crystal armor had never been broken. His plans had never failed. In his private thoughts, which he shared with no one, Do-One sometimes felt empty. Each victory made the emptiness bigger, but he pushed these thoughts away, just like he had been taught. Feelings were weakness. Victory was everything. The first reports came in from his ships. They had found a good place to start the invasion, a city called Seoul. Do-One studied the pictures of the city. It was full of tall buildings that reflected the sun, almost like crystal towers. For a moment, it reminded him of his home world, but he pushed that thought away too. Begin the attack, he ordered through the ship's communication system. Show them our power. Show them resistance is pointless. As his ships moved into position around Seoul, Du-won felt sure this would be just another victory to add to his collection. Humans were small, soft creatures. Their weapons were simple. Their armies were weak compared to his forces. Soon they would bow to him, just like all the others. But somewhere in the deepest part of his mind, in a place he pretended didn't exist, a small voice whispered that Commander Hee-jin might be right. There was something different about this world, about these humans, something he didn't understand. Do-won shook his head, making his crystal armor chime softly. He didn't need to understand humans. He only needed to defeat them. That was his purpose, his mission, his whole life. That was all that mattered. The first explosions began to light up the night sky over Seoul. Du-won watched through the ship's viewing screens as his forces began their attack. The humans would learn, just like all the others, that resistance against him was pointless. His crystal armor would protect him from their weapons. His armies would crush their defenses. His will would break their spirit. Everything was going according to plan. Everything was perfect. Du-won was sure of his victory. But he didn't know that in a small house in Seoul, a little girl named Sunmi was about to change everything. He thought he knew about strength and weakness, about victory and defeat, about the power of feelings he had locked away so long ago. As the first day of the invasion ended, Du-won prepared for another victory. But fate had other plans, plans that not even his unbreakable crystal armor could defend against. The true battle was about to begin, and it would be fought not with weapons, but with something much more powerful. The simple, pure feelings of a child. Tomorrow, Du-won said to himself, Earth will be mine, just like all the others. He was wrong, but it would take a very special meeting to show him just how wrong he was. The mighty General Du-won, conqueror of 17 star systems, was about to learn that some forms of strength can't be measured in weapons or armor, and that the most powerful force in the universe might just be a child's innocent heart. The morning sun rose over Seoul, but few people could see it through the thick smoke that filled the sky. The crystal ships of General Du-won's army hung in the air like sharp icicles, their weapons sending bright beams of light down into the city. In an underground shelter beneath a school, Mei sat with her daughter Sunmi and 30 other children. As a kindergarten teacher, Mei knew how to keep children calm during scary times. She read stories to them and led them in quiet songs, trying to make the shelter feel less frightening. "Mama," Sunmi whispered, holding her favorite teddy bear tight. "Why are the crystal people angry with us?" Mei smoothed her daughter's hair gently. "Sometimes people do angry things because they're scared or sad inside," she explained. "Remember what we learned about the boy who was being mean in school?" Sunmi nodded. "Teacher said he was mean because he was lonely and didn't know how to make friends." "That's right," Mei said with a smile. "Sometimes the biggest bullies are the ones who need kindness the most." Above ground, the battle for Seoul continued. Jae-ho, a former Special Forces soldier, led a small group of fighters who were giving the crystal aliens more trouble than expected. They had discovered that while the aliens' armor couldn't be broken, their ships could be confused by simple mirrors reflecting their own light beams back at them. General Du-won was not pleased. He stood in a captured square in the middle of Seoul, his crystal armor reflecting the flames of burning buildings around him. "How are these humans still fighting?" he demanded from Commander Hee-jin. "They should have surrendered by now." "They protect their families, General," Hee-jin explained. "They fight harder when they are defending their homes and loved ones." Do-won made an angry sound. "Then we will take their families. Bring me their leaders' children. They will surrender when they see we have what they love most." But Hee-jin looked uncomfortable. "General, taking children as hostages. This is not our way. The Crystalline Empire has always won through strength, not through threatening the weak. Are you questioning my orders, Commander?" Du-won's voice was as sharp as his crystal armor. "No, General. I am reminding you of who we are. He-Jin stood straight, showing no fear. We are warriors, not monsters. Before Do-Won could respond, an explosion rocked the square. Jeho's fighters had set up mirrors on several buildings, reflecting the crystal ship's weapons back at them. The air filled with rainbow lights as the beams bounced between the buildings. Clever, Do-Won admitted, watching the light show. These humans are more resourceful than expected. In another part of the city, Mi-Ray led her group of children through underground tunnels. The shelter wasn't safe anymore. The crystal ships had started scanning below ground. They needed to reach the new shelter in the mountains. Remember, children, Mi-Ray said softly. We're playing the quiet game. The quietest one gets a special star when we reach the new shelter. Sun Mi held her mother's hand tightly, but she wasn't afraid. She watched the crystal dust that fell from the ceiling when the ships moved overhead. It sparkled just like the glitter they used in art class, making beautiful patterns in the air. Above them, Do-Won was growing frustrated. He had never faced an enemy like this before. The humans didn't fight like normal armies. They used simple tricks instead of advanced weapons. They hid in clever places. They helped each other escape instead of trying to save themselves. These humans are strange, he said to He-Jin as they watched another group of fighters disappear into the city's maze of alleys. They smile even when they are losing. They sing songs in their hiding places. They waste time saving others when they could be saving themselves. He-Jin nodded. Yes, General. This is what I tried to tell you. Humans have strength that cannot be measured by weapons or armor. Do-Won stepped forward, his crystal boots making sharp sounds on the broken street. I will find this strength, he declared. I will understand it, and then I will break it, just like I have broken all other resistance. But even as he said these words, Do-Won felt something strange inside his crystal armor. It was a feeling he had not allowed himself to feel for many years. Doubt. These humans were making him remember things he had worked hard to forget. He remembered being a young crystal child, before the teachers made him lock his feelings away. He remembered wanting to make friends, wanting to help others, wanting to be more than just a perfect warrior. No, he said sharply, pushing the memories away. Feelings are weakness. I am General Do-Won, conqueror of 17 star systems. I have never lost. I have never failed. I will not start now. As night fell over Seoul, both sides prepared for another day of battle. In the underground tunnels, Mi-Ray's group found a safe place to rest. She sang soft lullabies to help the children sleep, her voice carrying gently through the darkness. Sun Mi lay awake, holding her teddy bear and looking at the crystal dust that still sparkled on the ground. Mama, she whispered, do you think the crystal people like stories too? Mi-Ray smiled in the darkness. Everyone likes stories, sweetheart. Stories help us understand each other. Maybe the crystal people just haven't heard the right story yet. Above them, in his command ship, Do-Won stood at his window, looking down at the city lights that still burned despite his army's attacks. He heard something floating up from below, a faint sound of singing from the human hiding places. For just a moment, the singing made him feel something, a crack in his crystal armor that went deeper than any weapon had ever reached. But he forced the feeling away, just as he had been taught. Tomorrow would be different, he told himself. Tomorrow, he would find the human's secret strength and defeat it. Tomorrow, he would add Earth to his list of conquests. But somewhere in the city below, a little girl was dreaming of crystal people who just needed to hear the right story. And her dream was about to change everything Do-Won thought he knew about strength and weakness, about victory and defeat, about the power of feelings he had tried so hard to forget. 3 days into the siege of Seoul, General Do-Won decided to inspect the captured areas himself. He walked through the empty streets, his crystal armor gleaming in the morning light. 2 guards followed him, but he hardly needed them. No weapon on earth could harm him. The city was quiet now. Most people had gone underground or escaped to the mountains. Broken glass crunched under Do-Won's crystal boots as he walked. He saw abandoned toys in front of houses and meals left half-eaten on restaurant tables. These signs of interrupted lives bothered him in a way he could not explain. "General," one of his guards said, "we detect movement in that building." The guard pointed to a small school with colorful paintings on its walls. Do-Won looked at the school building. Children had drawn pictures of stars and planets on the windows. One drawing showed people holding hands with what looked like aliens, all smiling together. Something about this drawing made Do-Won stop and stare. Meanwhile, inside the school building, Mayray was leading her group through a secret passage. They had spent the night here while waiting for rescue vehicles from the mountains. But now crystal soldiers were too close. They needed to move. "Remember, children," Mayray whispered, "we must be very quiet, like mice in the walls." The children nodded, holding hands in a long line as they walked. But Sunmai had dropped her teddy bear in one of the classrooms. This bear was her best friend, given to her by her father before he went away. Without telling anyone, she let go of the line and went back to find it. Do-Won entered the school building alone, telling his guards to wait outside. The quiet halls reminded him of his own school days, long ago on his crystal world. He remembered being a small child before they taught him to lock his feelings away. He remembered drawing pictures too, until they told him warriors don't make art. He heard a small sound and turned quickly. There, in a classroom doorway, stood Sunmai. She had found her teddy bear and was holding it tight. She looked up at the huge crystal alien, but she didn't run away. Do-Won stood very still. In 17 conquered worlds, he had never been this close to a child. He expected the small human to scream or cry. That's what everyone did when they saw him up close. But Sunmai didn't scream. Instead, she looked at him with curious eyes and said, "Your crystal armor is pretty. It makes rainbows like the bubbles we blow in class." Do-Won didn't know how to respond. No one had ever called his armor pretty before. They called it terrifying, invincible, deadly, but never pretty. "You should run away, small human," he said in his deep voice. "I am General Do-Won, conqueror of 17 worlds. Everyone fears me." Sunmi took a step closer, still holding her bear. "My teacher says that sometimes people act scary because they're sad inside. Like the big boy who broke my friend's toy. He was mean because he didn't have any toys at home." Another step closer. Do-Won found himself unable to move. This had never happened in battle before. No enemy had ever made him freeze like this. "Are you sad inside your crystal armor?" Sunmai asked. Before Do-Won could answer, she did something that would change everything. She walked up to him and hugged his leg, just like she had hugged the mean boy at school who then became her friend. Do-Won felt something crack inside him. Not his physical armor, but something deeper. The walls he had built around his feelings started to break. "Small human," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "What are you doing?" "Giving you a hug," Sunmai said simply. "Mama says hugs are magic. They make sad feelings smaller and happy feelings bigger." At that moment, Mirai found them. She had noticed Sunmai was missing and followed her tracks. She stood in the doorway, expecting to see something horrible. Instead, she saw her daughter hugging the leg of the most feared being in the galaxy. Mirai knew this was a dangerous moment, but she also knew that children often see truth that adults miss. Instead of screaming or trying to run, she walked slowly into the room. "Sunmi," she said gently, "what did we learn about asking before giving hugs?" Sunmi looked up at Do-Won. "I'm sorry. May I hug you, Mr. Crystal General?" Do-Won felt tears forming in his eyes, something that hadn't happened since he was a child. His crystal armor started to glow with a soft, warm light, something it had never done before. "How?" he asked Mirai. "How is she not afraid?" Mirai smiled softly. "Children see with their hearts, not their eyes. They don't know they're supposed to be afraid until we teach them to be." Sunlight was still hugging his leg. The warmth of her small arms seemed to reach through his armor, touching the lonely child he used to be. the one who had been taught that feelings were weakness. Your daughter, Do-Won said quietly. She reminds me of someone. A small crystal child who used to draw pictures and want to make friends, before they taught him that warriors must be hard and cold. That child is still there, Mayri said, inside your armor. Children never really go away. They just hide sometimes, waiting for someone to tell them it's safe to come out. Commander He-jin, worried about his general's long absence, entered the school. He found them in the classroom. The mighty General Do-Won, conqueror of 17 worlds, standing very still while a small human child hugged his leg and a human teacher spoke to him with kindness instead of fear. General, He-jin asked, concerned, are you well? Do-Won looked at his commander, and He-jin saw something he had never seen before, tears on his general's crystal face. No, He-jin, Do-Won said softly. I am not well. I have not been well for a very long time. But perhaps that is about to change. Sun-Mi finally let go of his leg and held up her teddy bear. Would you like to hold him? He gives good hugs too. Do-Won, the invincible warlord, the undefeated general, the being who had conquered 17 worlds, gently took the small teddy bear in his huge crystal hands. And as he did, he felt the last of his emotional walls crumble away. The war for Earth would not be won with weapons or armies. It would be won with a child's hug, a teacher's wisdom, and the healing of a crystal heart that had been broken long ago. News spread quickly through the crystal ships that something had changed with General Do-Won. The mighty warlord who had never shown mercy in 17 conquests now spent hours sitting in a small classroom, talking with a human child and her mother. Commander He-jin watched as his general slowly transformed. Do-Won's crystal armor, once clear and cold, now glowed with warm colors when he spoke with Sun-Mi. The little girl had brought her favorite books to show him, and the fearsome conqueror of worlds sat on a tiny chair, carefully holding the books in his huge hands. And this is why the lonely dragon made friends, Sun-Mi explained, pointing to a picture in her book. He learned that being scary didn't make him happy. Being kind made him happy. Do-Won touched the picture gently. On my world, he said softly, they don't tell stories like this to children. They tell stories of battles and conquest. They teach that feelings make you weak. Mayri, who sat nearby grading papers as if alien invasions were perfectly normal, looked up. What stories would you like to tell, General Do-Won? The question caught him by surprise. No one had asked what he wanted in a very long time. I used to imagine stories about crystal people and soft people becoming friends, but such thoughts were forbidden. Nothing is forbidden in stories, Sun-Mi said, patting his hand. That's why they're magic. Outside the school, the war had come to a strange pause. Crystal soldiers stood confused as humans walked past them, no longer running in fear. Some children even waved at them, making the soldiers wave back awkwardly. Jai-Ho, the resistance fighter, came to see this miracle for himself. He found his old classroom full of crystal soldiers sitting with human children, learning to draw with crayons. Their armor sparkled with new colors as they created art for the first time in their lives. General, He-jin said, entering the classroom with important news. The Crystalline Empire demands to know why we haven't conquered Earth yet. They expect answers. Do-Won looked up from the storybook. Tell them, he paused, looking at Sun-Mi's hopeful face. Tell them I have made a great discovery. Earth has a power greater than any weapon. A power that could change our empire forever. They won't understand, General, He-jin warned. They will say you have become weak. Then let them come see for themselves, Do-Won said, standing up. His crystal armor shimmered with rainbow colors. Let them meet these humans who fight with kindness and win with love. That evening, Mayri organized a special event in the schoolyard. Humans and crystal soldiers sat together under the stars, sharing food and stories. Sun-Mi taught crystal children how to make paper airplanes, while their soldier parents watched in amazement. I never knew we could feel such things, one crystal soldier said to Mirai. We were taught that feelings were dangerous. Feelings are like water, Mirai explained. If you try to hold them back, they become dangerous. If you let them flow naturally, they give life. High above Earth, the leaders of the crystalline empire arrived in their grand ships. They came to punish Do-One for his weakness. Instead, they found their strongest warrior sitting in a circle of human children, teaching them crystal songs from his childhood. What is the meaning of this? Demanded the Crystal Emperor, his armor dark and cold. General Do-One, you have betrayed everything we stand for. Sun Mai, not understanding the danger, walked right up to the Emperor. Would you like to join our circle? We're learning about feelings. The Emperor stepped back, but Sun Mi took his hand. Her simple touch made his armor glow slightly, just as it had done to Do-One. My Emperor, Do-One said, standing tall. I thought I was the strongest warrior in the Empire because nothing could break my armor. But this child showed me that true strength is having the courage to feel, to care, to love. This is madness, the Emperor began, but his voice faltered as he watched crystal soldiers playing with human children, their armor glowing with colors he had never seen before. No, Mirai said gently. This is healing. Your people have been hurt, just like Do-One was. You taught them to lock their feelings away. But feelings don't disappear. They wait, like seeds under snow, ready to grow when spring comes. Over the next few weeks, something remarkable happened. The invasion turned into a cultural exchange. Crystal soldiers learned to draw, to sing, to feel. Human teachers helped them remember the children they used to be, before they were taught to be warriors. The Crystal Emperor, influenced by Sun Mi's innocent friendship, made a historic decision. The crystalline empire would change. They would keep their strength but add compassion. They would learn from humans how to balance power with kindness. Do-One became the first crystal ambassador to Earth. He kept his impressive armor, but now it glowed with warm colors that made children smile instead of fear. Every morning, he visited Sun Mi's class, where he learned more about feelings from the children than he had learned about war in all his years as a general. You see, Ho-Jin, Do-One said, watching crystal and human children play together in the schoolyard. You were right about humans being different. They didn't fight my armor. They fought the walls around my heart, with weapons I couldn't defend against: kindness, acceptance, and love. Ho-Jin smiled, his own armor glowing softly. And those were the only weapons that could have truly defeated you, General. Sun Mi, overhearing them, tugged on Do-One's hand. You're not defeated, silly. You're free. Like the dragon in the story. Now you can be who you really are. Do-One picked her up gently, his crystal armor twinkling like stars. And who am I really, small teacher? You're my friend, she said simply, giving him another hug. And friends are the best thing in the whole universe. The mighty General Do-One, once known as the Invincible Warlord of the Crystalline Empire, felt tears of joy roll down his crystal face. His armor had never been broken by any weapon, but his heart had been opened by a child's love. And that, he now knew, was the greatest victory of all. The war that everyone expected to end the world had instead made it better. In schoolyards across Earth, crystal children now played with human children, their armor glowing with all the colors of their feelings. And in the great halls of the Crystal Empire, they began to tell new stories. Stories of how the strongest warrior in the galaxy was defeated not by weapons, but by a simple hug from a child who didn't know she was supposed to be afraid.